Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Serena, and in today's video we're going to be making my Halloween costume. This year's costume is directly inspired by my new Tone Food Center series that I've been doing over here on YouTube and Instagram. It's a series where I'm trying out all the attachments that came with my vintage appliance, and I'm using the manual's recipes to do it. And because I've been having so much fun with particularly the salad section of the manual, I decided to do a Jello mold inspired costume. So in today's video, we're going to be mostly just working with the top portion of the costume, which is going to be representative of the box of Jello. And then I do make an apron that I tried to make look like the Jello mold, and I will kind of like show you a little teeny tiny bit of the steps of that. So if you're interested in seeing me make this year's costume, go ahead and like and subscribe, and let's get into the materials that I'll be using today. For today's video, we're going to be making the top left view of Simplicity 4656. This is a size 12 bust 30 blouse with the zipper being on the side of the blouse so it pulls over the head. This pattern is from 1954. I'll be using some white cotton twill that's quite light to make up the main portion of the blouse. And for the accents, I will be using a blue bias tape so that way it matches the 1950s, 60s box of Jello that I found online. So jumping right in, I'm using some carbon paper and a tracing wheel to mark out the darts on the blouse front and back. Now off to the sewing machine to sew in all of the darts. This should be a really simple blouse to make, and that comes in handy since my week and schedule has been thrown off so much. Now I'm rushing to get this done. This pattern is just a two-piece pattern, like a two main piece pattern. You have the front and the back cut on the fold, and then you have your all-in-one facing. I really like this pattern, but I don't know if you've noticed, but I don't hardly ever make any blouses, especially ones that don't button in the front. Because this is a blouse that zips up the side and not a shirt that buttons straight down the center, I do recommend that you make a muslin. I don't typically make blouses, so I do have to make a muslin. I'm considering this Halloween outfit to be a muslin for two reasons. One, I am not sponsored by Jello, so I have no incentive to be running around town wearing their logo on my chest, and I'll get more into that later. But two, because it's a one-time wear, I felt like it was a great opportunity to use this as a muslin, as the fit is not that important to me for a costume. Now I want to get into why the fit would be an issue on a blouse like this as opposed to any other blouse that I've made or a shirtwaist dress. Because this blouse goes over your head and shoulders, there needs to be enough ease to do that. But because my bust is so small, I usually have to do a small bust adjustment on blouses like these. If I do too much of a small bust adjustment, then the bust is too narrow and my shoulders and head can no longer get past it. So there are a couple of options to remedy this. You can still do a small bust adjustment, but not go down to where it would be fitted. You can wear a padded bra or a period accurate bullet bra of some sort and pad it yourself. Or you can move the zipper to the back. Previously, I've said that I do not like back zippers, so therefore I would never move. But back zippers have started to grow on me, especially now that I wear 60s more often. So I'm not opposed to a back zipper, but I am opposed to a back zipper on a blouse. I feel like that's a whole lot of zipper that does not extend to my skirt, especially since my skirt and pant zippers are located on the side of the garment, so it would just break up the flow. If I went with a back zipper for this blouse, I think I would have to go with a separating zipper. And considering most separating zippers are made for coats and jackets, it would be really clunky and not very nice looking at all. So instead, I did go with the side zip, avoiding doing the small bust adjustment because a small bust adjustment that would still work for my body and go over my head and shoulders would be so insignificant, I think it would be a waste of time. So instead, I'm going to wear like a very padded bra to help compensate for the loose areas in this blouse. Now let's move on to the design. I am using this inkjet t-shirt transfer sheet to do the design. I'm also going to be using my die cutting machine to get this job done as well. I'm using the print and cut function, and I'm also going to be using some iron-on vinyl as well. Now let's talk about why I went with a Jello brand gelatin as opposed to all of the other gelatin options that they had around the time. And it all boils down to Jello had the easiest and most simple packaging to replicate. Originally, I wanted to use the same packaging as Jello and the same font as Jello, but switching up the Jello name brand to something sewing related. But that would require some sort of graphic design skills and Photoshop editing skills that I just don't have. So I had to stick with Jello's packaging. Another option that I really wanted to do instead was to replicate another brand that's like no longer in business, but their boxes were a lot more decorated, and I didn't want to use the inkjet transfer sheet and print off just a rectangle. I really wanted to blend the images of the package into the fit of my top. Going with the Jello name brand left me the option of just using the inkjet transfer sheet for the limes, and then I was able to use my Cricut and print out all of the lettering individually and space them out on the blouse in a way that I felt like it would suit my body best. I just didn't want it to scream, you printed it off with the inkjet printer and ironed it onto your chest. I mean, it kind of says that anyway because my printer is running out of ink, so you can definitely see the streaking in the limes, which I already knew, but ink is expensive, and so I don't plan on switching out my cartridges until they're completely empty. Once the placement of my Jello box has been created on the front of the blouse, it's time to assemble all of the pieces together, and this was the fastest part. I am sewing up the side seams. I'm using pinking shears for this because again, this is a wearable muslin, but like even less so because like I said earlier, I will not be walking around being Jello's billboard. I'll probably wear this a lot in the yard when the springtime comes around because we don't waste anything around here. While I am sewing down the hem of this blouse, I want to talk about the apron really quickly. I don't have much footage of this at all because I wasn't planning on actually making this particular video, so I need to talk about it now. So I am using some leftover vinyl that I had from my raincoat project, and because the vinyl is clear, I need to tint it. I searched all over the internet and found a way to tint plastic without putting it in a dye bath because this vinyl is very thin. I used Mod Podge and food coloring, and I mixed it together and painted it onto the vinyl, and once it dried sheer enough to where you could see through it. If you were to recreate this project, I highly recommend that you just buy green vinyl to begin with. But if you are using something that you already have, I find this to be a really good alternative. Just beware, there will be some streaks in it. Now, because I am making a mold and I want food to be suspended on the inside, I cut each of the pattern pieces twice. I'm only going to cover one of each of the pattern pieces in the glue mixture. So you should have 6 pieces total and only 3 of them should be covered in glue. Once your glued side has dried, then I use the clear side kind of like a lamination pouch. So I cut out whatever fruits and vegetables or whatever you want inside of your mold. I use pineapple tidbits and shrimp. I put them on the green side and then I encased it with the clear, kind of like a lamination. Because the nature of vinyl is sticky, it clings really well together and the glue makes it that much more clingy. Then I use the seam allowance to fold over and top stitch and turn those into channels for some boning. I genuinely think that you can skip this part, but I was really hoping I would get more of a dome shape with these boning pieces inside, but it turns out that it would have only given me the shape I wanted if I made the apron go all the way around. My original idea was to make this an entire skirt and instead of a blouse, make a pencil dress. But because I scrapped this project and I didn't have time to recover the entire thing, this was my compromise. My intent was also to use up the rest of this vinyl, and I ended up using some of it for my son's jellyfish costume, so it left me with a limited amount of vinyl to use for my own. I know this isn't the most detailed video I've ever made, but I hope it can spark some inspiration, and if you do try to make something on your own, you're not having to start your ideas from scratch. but instead you can build upon this foundation. Originally, the waistband was a satin ribbon that I had, but I decided to swap it out for the bias tape because it looked like the bottom of the box. Considering the time crunch, materials, and hoops I had to jump through to make this project come to fruition, I am very proud with how it turned out, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't already, please consider liking this video and subscribing to my channel for more if you like videos like this. If you would like to support my channel any further, you can leave me a virtual tip over on Ko-fi or become a bobbin over on Patreon, where I have exclusive videos, sneak peeks, and early uploads. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful and safe rest of your day. I will see you in the next one. Bye and happy Halloween.